Have you ever walked through a city so still that it seemed to be holding its breath, as if waiting for something just beyond the edge of sound? Tonight, we find ourselves in London, in the year 1666. City of narrow lanes and flickering lanterns, of quiet waters and restless dreams. Close your eyes and let the rhythm of your breath match the slow turning of time. Feel the cobblestones beneath your feet, uneven and warm from a long summer's day. The scent of wood smoke drifts through the air, mingling with the sweetness of bread still baking in the ovens of Pudding Lane. Somewhere nearby, a dog barks, a door closes, and the faint chime of a church bell marks the hour. The city is falling into sleep. London is alive in its stillness. Along the Thames, small boats rest by the shore, their ropes creaking gently in the current. The reflection of 1,000 candle flames trembles across the black water. In the upper windows of timbered houses, the glow of lanterns paints soft halos against the glass. Merchants, sailors, and families have all settled in for the night, their hearts steady, their lives simple, their dreams undisturbed. Few among them could imagine how fragile their world truly is, or how a single spark might alter it forever. The air tonight is dry, the kind of dryness that carries whispers, somewhere deep within the labyrinth of streets. A bakeress apprentice cleans his tools and stirs the embers in an oven that has burned since dawn. The city slumbers above him, unaware that those embers are the breath of something far larger, something that will soon take its first living flame. As you stand at the edge of this night, listen to the quiet pulse of the city, the creak of wood, the distant murmur of the river, the sigh of the wind as it threads through the alleys. London feels timeless, eternal, as if it has always been here and always will be. Yet even the greatest cities are built upon moments like this one, moments of stillness before change. If you wish, share where in time or where in the world you are listening from, and I will read it as part of this night's vigil. If you'd like to return for another journey through history and dreams, follow the channel, and I'll meet you again in another story. For now, let your breath slow, and let the city surround you, the lanterns, the quiet, the faint scent of bread and smoke. This is London on the eve of its great trial. Our story begins here, beneath the calm glow of 1,000 tiny flames, each one waiting to become a storm. The first light of morning spreads softly across London, brushing the rooftops with a pale, golden hue. Smoke curls lazily from 1,000 chimneys, mingling with the mist that rises from the Thames. It is a Sunday, and the city stirs slowly to life. Market stalls creaked open, horses clatter across the cobblestones. And somewhere, a bell tolls in St. Margaret's. The air smells of damp wood, coal, and freshly baked bread. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the rhythm of the city's heartbeat steady, alive, unaware of how fragile it truly is. The streets are narrow and close, lined with timber-framed houses that lean toward each other like old friends whispering secrets. Their upper floors jut out over the lanes, so close that a person could reach across from one window to another and shake hands. Above, ropes, strung with laundry sway in the warm wind. And below, apprentices sweep sawdust from doorsteps as their masters prepare for the day's trade. Bakers, cobblers, butchers, and merchants all move through this wooden maze with quiet familiarity. London in the summer of 1666 is a city of wood and fire its walls, built from flammable dreams and its people bound together by the pulse of routine. Along the river, the morning sun shows the sails of moored ships, turning the Thames into a ribbon of silver. Dockworkers haul barrels of spices and sacks of grain. Fishmongers call out their wares in sharp voices that echo between the warehouses. The river is the city's spine, carrying goods, gossip, and life itself from one end of London to the other. Everything depends on it, the flow of trade, the rhythm of work, the sense of endless movement that keeps the city alive. Yet, amid the noise, there is beauty. A young child runs barefoot down the lane, her laughter mingling with the cries of gulls. A woman pours water from an upper window, her voice calling softly to her neighbor below. In every corner, life hums with quiet dignity. The pulse of survival, the comfort of familiarity. To live in London is to live surrounded by sound, the rumble of carts, the clatter of hooves, the soft chorus of church bells that seem to ring through every hour. Inside one of the city's many bakeries, Deep in the labyrinth of Pudding Lane, the air is thick with the warmth of ovens. Loaves are lined up in neat rows, their crusts still glistening from the heat. The smell drifts out into the street, mingling with the scent of hay and horse sweat. The baker's family has been awake since before dawn, kneading dough, feeding fires, shaping bread for the market. It is hard work, but honest. Their lives are ordinary, steady, woven into the heartbeat of the city itself. No one suspects that this little shop, so full of comfort and light, will soon be known to all of history. As the day unfolds, London feels eternal. The same rituals repeat: the market cries, the tolling bells, the shimmer of sunlight on the river. Yet beneath this calm rhythm, the city carries the quiet tension of summer. A dry wind blowing from the east, wooden beams warmed by days without rain. The roofs crackle faintly under the sun. The air is light, sharp, restless. Something invisible gathers, though no one yet knows it. As dusk begins to fall, candles flicker to life in windows, casting amber reflections on the glass. The city exhales, the sounds soften to murmurs that clink of mugs in taverns, the low hum of conversation, the laughter that drifts through doorways. London sleeps easily tonight, its people unaware that their peace is balanced on the thinnest edge of fate. Tomorrow, the air will be different. Tomorrow, the city will wake not to the sound of bells or gulls, but to the roar of a fire that will change everything. But for now, London rests alive, innocent, and whole beneath the quiet glow of its lanterns. Night descends gently upon London, folding the city in layers of quiet and shadow. The last of the taverns close their shutters, the markets empty, and the sounds of the river soften to a low murmur. Lanterns sway on their hooks, their flames shivering in the warm wind that drifts down from the east. The air feels different, tonight lighter, drier, as though the very breath of the city has thinned. Somewhere above the rooftops, the moon peers through a veil of smoke from countless hearths, painting a faint silver line across the black water of the Thames. It is the kind of night that feels endless, but it will not last until dawn. In the narrow lanes near Pudding Lane, the smell of baked bread still lingers. Inside a small, timber-framed bakery, the coals have been burning since before sunrise. The baker's family has gone to sleep, leaving one apprentice to clean and tend to the ovens. His hands are tired, his mind already fading into dreams. He stirs the embers one last time, sweeping the ashes into a neat pile, unaware that a single spark has escaped, glowing faintly where the floor meets the wall. It is nothing, a breath of light, smaller than a coin. Yet in the stillness of the night, it catches on a dry beam, feeding on the wood as softly as a sigh. Outside, the streets are empty. The houses lean close to one another, their walls dry as parchment. A cat slips silently along a wall, pausing to watch the flicker of orange that has begun to pulse behind a shuttered window. The wind shifts, brushing through the alleyways, carrying the faintest scent of smoke. No one notices. A few lanterns still burn in the upper rooms, where London's citizens prepare for rest. Some whisper prayers, others finish their wine. The city exhales, trusting the night to hold it safe. The fire begins almost shyly, a low crack, a sudden flare, a whisper against the silence. The flame licks upward, catching a straw stack near the oven, then leaps to a timber beam overhead. The wood hisses, the air brightens, and shadows twist across the walls. Within minutes, the room is alive with mubinta, trembling orange dance that devours everything it touches. The apprentice stirs in his sleep, but does not wake. Above him, the ceiling begins to glow. As the wind gathers strength, the fire finds its companion. It stretches through the rafters, spills through the cracks, and begins to crawl outward, reaching the neighboring houses with hungry fingers. The dry air, the tight streets, the timbered walls all conspire to feed it. Within moments, what began as a spark becomes a pulse, and that pulse becomes a heartbeat. The city, still sleeping, does not yet know that it has begun to burn. Far away, near the river, a night watchman pauses in his patrol. He smells something sharp, metallic, wrong. He turned toward the north, squinting into the dark. For a brief second, he sees a flicker of red light rising between the rooftops. It seems distant, unthreatening. Fires happen often in this city of wood. Hesitates. 10 Mobus, on his lantern, swinging at his side. Behind him, the light grows brighter. The wind shifts again, and the faint whisper of flame becomes a living sound, a rustle, a sigh, a breath. By midnight, the sky above Pudding Lane glows faintly orange. The wind carries sparks into the narrow streets, scattering them like stars. Curtains catch. Thatched roofs smolder. Still, most of London sleeps, wrapped in dreams of another ordinary morning. But the city has already begun to change. The first whispers of the fire drift through its alleys, unseen and unstoppable, like the breath of fate itself. The first cry rises before dawn. A woman leans from her window on Pudding Lane and sees the sky above her painted in a strange, trembling red. For a moment, she believes it is the sunrise, until the heat touches her face and she smells the sharp scent of burning oak. Then comes a sound, low at first, like a sigh that rolls through the alleyways, growing into a roar that no one can ignore. One door after another opens, and the quiet of night shatters. Inside the bakery, flames devour everything in sight. The apprentice, coughing, stumbles to his feet, eyes wide with panic. He tries to beat the fire back with a cloth, but it surges toward him, swallowing the walls, licking the beams, breathing faster and faster. He runs into the street, shouting, his voice lost beneath the sound of crackling wood. The air itself seems to burn. Within minutes, neighboring houses are alight, their roofs glowing like torches. The wind, hot and unrelenting, feeds the flames and carries them upward, scattering sparks into the dark. London begins to wake. Bells ring out from nearby churches, summoning help. Sleepy figures appear at windows, their faces pale in the orange light. Children cry, dogs bark, and the narrow lanes fill with smoke so thick it feels alive. The city's heartbeat quickens. Panic spreads faster than the fire itself. Some rush to form lines with buckets of water, passing them hand to hand. Others flee toward the river, clutching whatever they can carry: bundles of clothes, books, silver, memories. The air is filled with shouts, prayers, and the deep groan of collapsing timbers. The fire moves with purpose. It leaps across lanes and courtyards as if guided by invisible hands. The wind turns every ember into a messenger of destruction. The heat grows unbearable. The air ripples like water. Sparks fall upon the tarred roofs, and each impact births another flame. Within an hour, half the street is engulfed. The watchmen try to pull down nearby houses to stop the spread, but their axes strike wood that is already burning. The city's defense is its pumps, its buckets. Its desperate courage seem small against the sheer power of the blaze. By the time the sun begins to rise, London's skyline is no longer the soft gray of morning, but a deep, living red. Smoke billows upward in vast columns, twisting and folding like storm clouds from the river. The reflection of the flames turns the water to molten gold. People gather along the banks, staring in silence as their world burns. The smell of pitch and resin fills the air, and the wind carries the faint cries of those trapped behind collapsing walls. Through it all, the city's great churches toll their bells, one by one, their notes heavy and trembling. The sound echoes through the smoke, mingling with the crackle of fire and the rush of wind. It is not yet a city in ruin, but it is no longer the London of yesterday. Something vast and unstoppable has awakened a force both beautiful and terrible, born of human carelessness and the hunger of nature itself. As the morning deepens, the fire spreads toward the riverfront. Flames leap from roof to roof, devouring warehouses filled with oil, wine, and timber. Each explosion sends sparks cascading into the sky. The people can only watch as the heart of their city begins to vanish behind a wall of flame. The wind howls through the streets, carrying the sound of cracking beams and falling stone. By midday, London is no longer waking, it is running, fleeing, crying. And yet, amid the terror, there is something hauntingly still about the moment. The fire, vast and alive, moves like a living creature, its light dancing over the faces of those who stand frozen in awe. What began as a spark in a quiet bakery has become a sea of flame that no human hand can control. The city breathes fire now, and the day has only just begun. The city moves as if caught in a fever dream. The air itself seems to shimmer, dense with heat and ash. From the riverbanks to the distant hills, London becomes a living current of bodies and smoke. Streets once filled with laughter and trade now echo with the sound of running feet, creaking carts, and cries that blur into one endless sound. It is a city in motion, not out of rhythm, but out of time. Flames rise in great sheets, swirling through the alleys like banners of light. The wind, fierce and determined, turns the fire into a storm. Embers drift above the rooftops like glowing birds, carried far beyond the reach of any hand. Houses ignite not from within, but from the sky itself, their beams catching fire as the wind rains sparks upon them. The air roars, a sound too vast to comprehend. It is as if the city is breathing through fire. Down by the Thames, the river becomes a mirror of chaos. Dozens of boats crowd the banks, overloaded with people and possessions. Families huddle together, clutching bundles wrapped in cloth, children's toys, holy books, portraits, and the few things they could carry in their arms. Some weep, some pray, some simply stare, their faces lit by the red glow of the burning city. The water, usually calm and slow, ripples with the movement of oars and the fall of ash. It carries away fragments of timber, floating candles, and the ghosts of houses already gone. The wind shifts again, driving the fire eastward. Flames consume the wharves, where barrels of oil and wine explode in sudden bursts of color. The sound is deafening, an endless crack and hiss as rooftops cave in, one after another. Through the smoke, figures move like shadows, pulling carts, leading horses, shouting names, lost to the roar. Above them, sparks rise into the sky and vanish among the stars. For a moment, it is impossible to tell where Earth ends and the heavens begin. Everywhere, the same questions ripple through the crowds. How far will it go? Will it reach the tower? Will it cross the river? Some whisper that it is divine punishment. Others curse the dry wind or the city's careless builders. But as the fire spreads, blame gives way to silence. There is no time to think, only to move, to carry, to flee, to survive. London is no longer a city of streets and homes. It has become a single organism of motion, driven by fear and by flame. In the heart of the city, amid the smoke and ruin, a small group of men stands in the glow of the burning skyline. Among them, the Lord Mayor watches in disbelief, his robe darkened by soot. His voice trembles as he orders houses to be torn down to halt the fire's advance. But it is too late. The wind carries the flames faster than the axes can fall. Wooden walls crumble before they can be touched. The fire leaps across the open spaces meant to stop it, as if mocking the efforts of men. Be nightfall, the line between land and flame has vanished. The air glows with a strange, unearthly beauty, orange and gold, shifting like the surface of the sun. The smoke hides the stars, and the wind howls through streets that no longer have names. London is not sleeping, nor waking. It is burning, breathing, becoming something new through destruction. On the river, a man rows his family away from the shore. He looks back only once. Behind him, the city he has always known is gone, replaced by a storm of light. The sound of collapsing towers rolls across the water like distant thunder. The sky burns without mercy, but also without malice. It is nature's voice, terrible, cleansing, indifferent. And as the night deepens, the movement slows. Exhausted crowds fall silent. The river carries them further downstream, away from the inferno that was once their home. The fire continues to roar, alive and unrestrained, consuming everything that stands in its way. London, the city of trade and stone, of prayer and pride, is now a sea of flame adrift beneath a sky of smoke. By the second night, the city is no longer a collection of streets and houses, but a vast landscape of smoke and flickering embers. The air itself feels alive, thick, trembling, filled with the soft hiss of burning wood and the distant crash of collapsing walls. The light of the flames turns the sky to bronze, and through that glowing haze, the silhouettes of people move like shadows in a dream. Yet among the chaos, there are voices that rise not in fear, but in care. Along the narrow alleys near Cheapside, neighbors help one another carry bundles of belongings toward the river. A woman holds the hand of an elderly man who cannot walk quickly, guiding him through the ash-covered streets. A group of apprentices form a line, passing buckets of water from a well to a burning house, their faces blackened with soot. They know it will not save the building, but they try anyway, not to preserve the walls, but the dignity of effort itself. In a courtyard behind a church, families gather together. Some sit silently, staring into the flames, while others share what little they have: a loaf of bread, a cup of ale, a wool blanket pulled from the ashes. A mother sings softly to her child, her voice trembling yet steady, a lullaby against the roar of destruction. Her song carries faintly through the smoke, and for a few moments, it becomes part of the night's strange harmony: the hiss of fire, the murmur of the river, the quiet strength of the human spirit refusing to be silenced. Further along the riverbank, soldiers and dock workers labor together, tearing down warehouses to keep the fire from spreading. The glow of the flames reflects off their faces as they swing axes and haul debris. Every crash of falling timber sends sparks into the air, but they do not stop. The work is desperate, endless, and often futile. Yet there is something sacred in their persistence. Amid the smoke and ruin, they speak little, but their eyes meet in silent understanding. They are fighting not just for a city, but for one another. On a small boat drifting down the Thames, a group of families sits huddled together. The river is crowded now with every kind of vessel: bargers, fishing boats, rowboats, all filled with people and what remains of their lives. Some pray aloud, their words rising above the water like fragile threads of hope. Others simply watch the burning skyline in silence. One man holds a lantern low, its weak flame flickering against the wind. He shields it carefully with his hand, as if protecting the last light of London itself. In the distance, the bells of St. Paul's toll once more, muffled by smoke. Their sound is rough, imperfect, but deeply human, a voice that refuses to vanish, even as the fire creeps closer. The people pause, to listen. For a brief moment, the entire city seems to hold its breath. The flames crackle, the river murmurs, and the bells keep ringing, slow and solemn, as if reminding everyone that not all things can burn. Somewhere near the edge of the fire, a priest kneels beside a group of refugees gathered in the ruins of a courtyard. His robe is torn, his face streaked with ash, but his eyes are calm. He speaks softly, not of punishment, nor of loss, but of endurance. His words are carried away by the wind, but the feeling remains that even in destruction, there is grace in standing together. As the night deepens, the fire rages on, but the voices of compassion rise with it. They are quiet, fragile, and yet stronger than the flames. A mother's lullaby, a worker's shout, a prayer whispered to the wind, each one a spark of another kind of fire, one that does not destroy, but endures. In the heart of the burning city, humanity glows like a coal that will not die, waiting for the dawn. The wind changes again, and the fire follows. It sweeps eastward with new fury, devouring everything in its path. By now, nearly 2/3 of the city glows with an unearthly light. A vast, living storm that moves as if guided by its own will. The air is thick with smoke and sparks. Every breath carries the taste of art. The ground trembles with the weight of collapsing walls. London has entered its longest night. In the heart of the city stands St. Paul's Cathedral, a fortress of faith and stone that has watched over London for centuries. Its great dome rises through the smoke like the ghost of a moon. For 2 days, it has withstood the flames, its thick walls keeping the fire at bay. Inside, men labor desperately to save it. They carry buckets of water up the narrow stairs, their bodies soaked with sweat and soot. Monks and soldiers, merchants and beggars all work side by side beneath the echoing vaults. The air within is suffocating, but they continue, believing that if St. Paul's stands, London itself will endure. Outside, the streets glow red. The wind drives burning debris against the walls of the cathedral. Sheets of flame press against its windows, turning the colored glass into molten jewels. Sparks drift upward, landing on the lead-covered roof. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, with a sound like thunder, the metal begins to melt. The molten lead runs down the sides of the dome in glowing rivers, dripping onto the stones below. The crowd gathered outside gasps in horror. They watch as the fire, once distant, now climbs the cathedral's skin like a living creature. Within minutes, the roof is ablaze. The great timbers that hold the dome ignite, their deep cracks bursting open in the heat. Smoke pours through the open doors in thick, rolling waves. Those still inside flee as the floor begins to tremble. The bells, heavy and ancient, swing once more, but not from human hands. Their deep tones ring out into the night as the structure begins to collapse. One massive section after another, each fall echoing like a heartbeat fading into silence. When the dome finally gives way, the sound is like the breaking of the world. A shower of sparks erupts into the sky, lighting the faces of those who stand frozen in the streets below. The people do not scream. They simply watch, motionless, as their city's heart falls inward. St. Paul's, the pride of London, the sanctuary of thousands, crumbles into ash before their eyes. For a moment, the roar of the fire seems too quiet, as if even the flames pause to honor what has been lost. All around, the city burns brighter. The air glows red and gold, and the river mirrors the inferno with trembling ripples of light. On the far banks, refugees stare across the water, their faces pale with exhaustion and disbelief. Some kneel, some whisper prayers, others simply sit in silence, holding each other as the heat brushes their skin from miles away. Above them, the sky flickers, streaked with smoke so thick it hides the stars. This is the longest night hour when even hope feels fragile. And yet, in the distance, faint lights appear. Lanterns bobbing on the river, carried by men who have returned to rescue others. Small boats drift toward the burning shore, their passengers reaching out through the smoke. They know they cannot stop the fire, but still they go, drawn by something greater than fear. The flames rage on, but there is a strange calm within their heart. The city's roar becomes a single, steady, sound-the breath of destruction and renewal intertwined. For the first time, the people of London understand that they are witnessing not the end of their city, but its transformation. Beneath the falling ash, a silence begins to form, the silence that comes before the dawn. Morning comes quietly, as if the world itself hesitates to breathe. The sky over London is pale and heavy, filled with drifting smoke that softens the edges of everything it touches. The wind has fallen still, and with its silence, the fire finally begins to die. What remains is not darkness, but a muted light, the kind that follows destruction, when even the air seems uncertain how to begin again. The city that once roared with life now lies beneath a veil of ash. Streets that yesterday teemed with traders and laughter are now empty, lined with the blackened skeletons of houses. Walls stand half broken, their timbers charred and leaning like old bones. The ground is warm beneath the feet, faintly trembling as the last embers sigh into smoke. From the riverbank to the hilltops, London is a vast, silent ruin. The great dome of St. Paul's is gone. The towers that once crowned the skyline now point to nothing but the sky. And yet, amid the silence, life stirs. A dog wanders through the ruins, nose pressed to the ground. A woman picks through the ashes of her home, her fingers gray with soot, searching for something familiar: a locket, a cup, a fragment of a child's toy. Nearby, a boy finds a piece of stained glass still intact, its colors dulled but unbroken. He holds it up to the light, and for an instant, the morning sun filters through it, scattering faint rainbows across the smoke. The color seems to breathe again, fragile but alive. Groups of survivors gather at the river, their faces drawn and hollow. They speak little. Words feel too heavy, too sharp for a world remade by flame. Some look back toward the city with disbelief, unable to recognize the streets where they were born. Others begin to help each other, lifting debris, clearing paths, offering bread or water to those who have none. The gestures are small, quiet, and yet they carry a weight greater than any wall still standing. The air smells of charcoal and rain. Clouds gather above the ruins, dark and full. When the first drops fall, they hiss softly as they touch the warm ground. Steam rises in thin, white threads, curling upward like ghosts departing the earth. The rain continues, steady and cleansing, washing away the soot, settling the dust. It is as if the heavens themselves have chosen to weep for the city and, in doing so, to bless it with the promise of calm. By midday, the fire is truly over. What remains is not silence alone, but something deeper, a kind of stillness that holds both sorrow and relief. People move through the ruins in slow procession, as if walking through a graveyard of memories. They do not yet speak of rebuilding or of the days to come. For now, they simply exist, breathing the air that the fire has left behind. In that kite, London feels ancient, stripped bare, but not defeated. Beneath the layers of ash and ruin lies a heartbeat still faint, still fragile, but alive. The city listens to itself, to the whisper of the river, to the soft rain on stone, to the echo of all that has been lost. And within that silence, something unseen begins to stir a thought, a resolve, a dream of light returning. Days pass, and the smoke begins to lift. The sun returns to London, pale at first, hesitant as, though uncertain, it has permission to shine upon the ruins. The air smells of damp stone and scorched timber, but beneath it drifts another scent. Fresh wood, sawdust, the faint fragrance of bread once more baking in new ovens. Life, cautious but determined, has begun to return. Everywhere, people move among the ashes with a quiet purpose. Carpenters clear the fallen beams, stacking them neatly by the roadsides. Masons test the strength of cracked walls, marking those that can be rebuilt. Children wander through the streets, carrying buckets of water to help wash away the soot. The city, though wounded, is breathing again. Its rhythm is slower now, deeper, wiser. Each sound the thud of a hammer, the murmur of conversation, the steady pulse of footsteps in the dust feels like a heartbeat starting anew. At the edge of the ruins of St. Paul's, a group of men gather in the morning light. Among them stands Christopher Wren, his eyes tracing the skyline that no longer exists. He does not see destruction alone. In the blackened outlines of the streets, he sees the shape of what might come next, a city reborn from its own ashes. He kneels to draw lines in the soot with his gloved hand. Wide streets, open squares, new facades of stone and symmetry. Around him, others watch silently, unsure whether to grieve or to dream. When he stands again, the plan for a new London lives quietly in the air between them, fragile but unbroken. The people begin to rebuild not only with tools, but with trust. Neighbors share bricks and timber. Strangers helped one another lift fallen beams. A widow gives shelter to a family she has never met. Children laugh again in the open squares, their voices echoing between the skeletons of walls that will soon rise anew. In taverns rebuilt from half-burned planks, stories are told of the nights of fire, of courage, of loss, of miracles that no one expected. Each retelling makes the pain lighter, shaping memory into resilience. The river, too, begins to heal. Its surface, once filled with floating debris and ash, now gleams once more under the sunlight. Boats carry stone and wood upstream, their sails white against the gray sky. The water reflects a city in motion, not one of panic, but of purpose. It murmurs softly against the banks, as if carrying away the final remnants of fear. By autumn, the first new houses begin to rise. They are stronger, built of brick and stone instead of timber. Their walls thicker, their chimneys taller. The streets are laid wider, designed to let the wind move freely, to prevent the fire's return. As people walk among them, there is a quiet pride in their steps. They no longer look back at the ruins. They look forward, toward the shape of a future built by their own hands. At night, lanterns burn once again along the lanes, but their light feels different now. Softer, steadier. They are not merely to guide the way, they are symbols, small flames of defiance and faith. The glow spills over new doors and fresh walls, painting the city in warm gold. The same fire that once destroyed has, in its own strange way, taught London how to endure. From the hill where the cathedral once stood, the wind carries the scent of fresh mortars, and the sound of hammers echoing through the streets. The people of London no longer whisper of loss, but of rebuilding, of plans, of dreams. Hope, once only a spark in the ashes, has grown into a steady flame, one that burns not with destruction, but with resolve. Years pass, and the city changes its skin. The scent of smoke fades from the air, replaced by that of fresh lime and stone. Where once there were charred ruins, now rise proud facades, elegant and new. London, reborn, gleams beneath the light of a gentler sun. But beneath the cobblestones, deep in the foundations, the ashes of 1666 still rest mute witnesses to a night that time refuses to forget. The people speak of the fire less often now, though its memory lingers in the rhythm of their days. It lives in the way they build their homes farther apart, in the width of the streets, in the stone that replaces wood. It whispers in the bells that toll from the rebuilt churches, their sound round and steady, as if speaking softly to the ghosts of what once was. Every street that burned has been reborn with a new name, a new beginning, but the air still holds a faint trace of what it survived. St. Paul's rises again, grander than before. Its dome gleams pale and proud against the sky, a promise made of stone. Beneath its arches, people walk in silence, feeling both awe and remembrance. The walls echo with hymns not of sorrow, but of endurance. It is not merely a cathedral, it is a vow carved in marble, a declaration that even the fiercest fire cannot erase what the human spirit insists on building again. Those who live through the flames grow old, and their stories become lessons told by candlelight. Children listen, eyes wide, as their elders describe the heat, the smoke, the crimson sky. The fire becomes legend, softened by time, transformed from terror into truth. Each generation inherits not the fear, but the wisdom that nothing built by human hands is eternal, and yet nothing that carries human will is ever truly lost. The city's heart beats stronger now, though slower. The scars of the fire, invisible to most eyes, lie beneath every step, and perhaps that is the secret of London's endurance, that it remembers without despair. The people walk through its streets without hearing the roar of flames, but on certain nights, when the wind is dry and the air still, a faint scent of ash returns. It drifts through the alleys and across the river, a ghostly reminder of all that was burned away to make room for the light that followed. From the towers and bridges of the rebuilt city, the view stretches wide. Stone, glass, and sky meet. Where once there was only smoke, the Thames glimmers beneath them, eternal and unchanged, carrying reflections of the new St. Paul's and the lanterns that line the banks. The river has seen it all, the birth, the fire, the rebirth, and keeps flowing, patient and quiet, as if guarding the city's memory in its depths. Time does what the fire could not. It softens the edges, smooths the pain, turns grief into grace. The embers of 1666 still glow, not to warn, but to remind. Every brick that stands today was laid with the knowledge of fragility. Every street paved with the memory of endurance. London learned that night that to burn is not to end, but to begin again. Centuries have passed, and yet the city still breathes over its buried fire. Beneath the modern streets and the quiet hum of life, the echoes of 1666 linger, like a faint heartbeat, steady, patient, eternal. London has grown vast and shining, its skyline a crown of glass and steel. But if you walk its narrowest lanes at dawn, when the fog drifts low and the world feels suspended, you can still sense it. The warmth of something ancient moving beneath your feet, the whisper of embers that never truly died. The people of today walk upon the ashes of those who rebuilt before them. They cross bridges that rise where ruins once smoldered. They sleep in rooms lit by soft electric glow, unaware that the walls around them stand because of lessons carved from flame. Every brick, every street name, every echo of a bell carries the memory of that fire, the night when the city learned that even the strongest walls can fall, but spirit endures. The great dome of St. Paul's gleams once again, but it does so not in defiance of the past, rather in dialogue with it. When sunlight strikes its curve at morning, it shines for those who never saw the dawn that followed. Its stones hold more than beauty. They hold forgiveness. The cathedral is no longer just a monument of faith, it is an altar to resilience. A reminder that rebirth is written into the very fabric of human life. At night, the Thames flows dark and silent beneath its bridges. Its surface mirrors the city lights, dozens of tiny flames flickering in the water. Not of destruction, but of remembrance. The river moves as it always has, carrying reflections of the past alongside the dreams of those who live now. If you lean close, you might almost hear it whisper. We endured. We changed. We leave still. The Great Fire of London is no longer only a tragedy. It has become a story told softly through time, not to frighten, but to awaken. It speaks of loss and renewal, of how the greatest forces of destruction can sometimes clear the way for beauty to begin again. And though the city above has changed beyond recognition, the soul of it remains the same. Restless, luminous, unbroken. Tonight, as the lamps of London burn quietly against the mist, their light joins the glow of all those that came before. Every flame is an echo of another small, steady, eternal. The fire that once consumed the city now lives as warmth in its heart, a silent pulse beneath the cobblestones. Listen closely, and you will hear it still. The soft murmur of survival, the quiet rhythm of a city that learned to rise from its own ashes and shine once more. The night has settled once more over London. The streets are calm, the air cool and still. Far above, the city's lights shimmer like quiet stars, scattered across the face of the earth. Each one flickers gently, like a reminder that the story of this place, of its loss, its courage, its rebirth, has never truly ended. Close your eyes. Picture the city not as it is now, but as it was then. The narrow lanes, the timbered houses, the river winding through its heart. Imagine the silence that came after the flames, the soft rain falling upon the ashes, the slow return of footsteps on wet stone. That silence, that calm, still lives here in every heartbeat, in every whisper of the wind moving through the old streets. What burned once has become light. The fire that once consumed has become warmth. London endures because its people learned that even when everything falls to ash, the soul remains. It rebuilds. It remembers. It shines again. And within that truth lies something timeless, something we all carry, in our own quiet way. The power to begin anew after the darkest night. Now, as the river flows beneath the bridges, let your breath follow its rhythm. Inhale with the tide. Exhale with the current. Feel the weight of the day ease, like dust settling back to earth. The story has ended, but its echo will linger softly, gently beneath the hum of your own heartbeat. If you wish, share where in time or where in the world you are listening from. Each message becomes part of this journey, another spark in the constellation of voices that travel through history and dreams. And if you'd like to return for another night's passage, follow the channel, and I will meet you there, again with another story, another time, another world waiting to be remembered. For now, let the fire rest. Let the embers fade into quiet gold. The city sleeps, and so may you. Breathe deeply, and let yourself drift into dreams where the glow of London still shines softly beneath the stars, and the warmth of its light never fades.